habitat, as long as it's temporary, it's okay. So what does that mean? Well, if we fill in the Bedford Basin, and with a 99-year lease, and one of the terms of the lease is when this lease is over, you return it back to its original state. I don't know. I mean, that's my hypothetical, right? Is that temporary? So as long as the disruption's temporary, it's okay. So we have gutted the fish habitat legislation. And then we withdrew officially from the Kyoto Implementation Act, so that's gone. We no longer have to report anything internationally. And then we somehow found $8 million to go after charities who might be doing advocacy. I know that this applies to all charities, but I believe this was sparked because of advocacy work or advocacy work that environmental charities were doing. Charities can do up to 10% of their work can be advocacy. This has created such an incredible chill in the charity sector that I met a woman who had all this incredible information. We had this fascinating conversation about some neat stuff, and I was like, can I get a copy of your card? And she said to me, I don't think I should give it to you. Because she's that afraid of impacting her charity that it might be partisan that she gave her business card to me. And that, you know, broke my heart in a lot of ways. But the chill is incredible. Some charities are fighting back. Some charities are getting really creative about how they do their advocacy work. They're setting up groups that aren't charities. You know, some people are figuring out ways to do it. But Tides Canada has 4 audits happening simultaneously right now. 4 simultaneous tax audits because of complaints. They're complaint driven. And who's complaining? It's Ethical Oil is making the complaints. So we did find money to go after charities and do a bit of a witch hunt there. And then again, the ultimate piece is the fact that if government missed anything to get these pipeline projects through, they did give ultimate authority to Cabinet to make decisions about whether or not these things go through. A small issue, pipeline is no longer considered a work. So it's no longer, yeah, you don't actually have to do an environmental assessment for a pipeline. There's no work. You just check the time. Okay. One other thing on environmental assessment that's, we don't know what's going to happen yet, but previously for an environmental assessment to take place at the federal level, something had to be triggered. Triggered was actually the word used. So what's triggered? A piece of federal legislation like the Navigable Waters Act, so a waterway that crosses a boundary, or migratory birds, for example. So if you found something that was covered by a federal piece of legislation, it triggered an assessment. Trigger's gone. It's now a list. These are the things that are covered that we'll need to have an environmental assessment for, and nothing else. So if you're on the list, there's an assessment, and if not. Haven't seen the list. What am I worried about? I'm worried that oil sands development won't be on the list because, heck, we've done lots of those. What do we need to learn about another project when we've done so many of them? I'm worried about that. I'm worried that offshore development, oil and gas development won't be on the list. We've done lots of those. I'm not the only one that's worried. The Environment Commissioner, who works at the Auditor General's office, who is brilliant and impartial, testified, and he expressed concern, which is a strong word for him, around what will be on the list and what won't. But he did say currently in Canada we have 4,000 to 6,000 environmental assessments a year, and now we're going down to 10 to 12. And I was like, 1,000? He said, no, 10 to 12 assessments in Canada per year.
How many again?
From 4,000 to 6,000. To 10, yeah. And he did say, I don't know what's on the list, but here are some things we need to watch for, and he sort of made some educated predictions. Because, how can you make an educated prediction? There are 3 different kinds of environmental assessment. One is called a screening, and screenings have been eliminated. So he said, look, all these things are traditionally screenings, like oil and gas exploration is a screening. haven't seen the results of it yet. I know, there's a lot of sighing and shaking heads of disbelief, and normally I don't give really, really depressing talks. I think there are a lot of folks here who've seen me in community before, and you know, I do sort of try to present the rallying cry of how we combat these changes, and I try to present a little bit of hope. This one's hard. Also, there was so much, I really did just want to get into the meat of what are some of the changes. I don't know what Occupy's intention, who's here from Occupy? Oh, yeah, a bunch of folks. I don't know what Occupy's intention was in terms of what to do after this, if we have a discussion about how does community respond and next steps, or if you want to just do a Q&A. In terms of fighting back, the bill's passed.
That's true.
So it's a done deal now?
So it's a done deal.
Maybe tweaked though, or...
Well, changes, you know, legislation can always be changed again. The question is strategically, how do we do that? It may have to be issue by issue, right? Like doctors rallying about changes to refugee health and going and questioning the minister every time there's a minister speaking on something. There's always a doctor saying, but what about health care for refugees? You know, it might be an issue by issue approach by community that will work best.
But
the thing is the courts are probably still the best bet for environmental stuff, because they're not going to give any ground on that, no matter what pressure is brought on them publicly. Because that's their core beliefs. That's Stephen Harper's core beliefs.
So on particular projects, I know that there are court cases not in the works, like they've been filed. But for example, the Northern Gateway Pipeline, I've spoken to folks firsthand, to First Nation governments firsthand, who were like, as soon as this is approved, we've got our lawyers lined up, right? So there is courts, there is public pressure to change things, there is watching some of the horrifying outcomes, and then saying, look, we told you this would happen, you know, and getting back to it. But I can tell you from the perspective of someone who sat there, you know, voted for 24 hours straight, first-hand account of it, I'm just picking up the pieces now to be like, okay, now what? You know, September's coming soon, and now what? But I'll turn it over to maybe to some of the folks from Occupy if they want to facilitate or get a discussion going.
Oh, that would be great. Sharon Murphy, of course, was the person who really took the lead on making this happen along with your office. So thanks to both of you. Occupy is very worried that we are not concerting our efforts. You may laugh at that. You may think Occupy doesn't exist anymore, but it does. And our concerns at the moment is exactly to get people together, to get all the activists together. I went to a Lead Now rally. It's a whole different set of people, and we weren't in communication before. That occurs through all the activist movements. The federal employees at one point went out on the street. We didn't know about that. We need, at very least, to be in close communication so we know about each other. Megan's List, of course, is probably the best thing that exists. But we need more than that. Occupy intends to hold a fest of activists where every activist organization has a table or a footstool and tells about what it's doing to the others. We're going to try to do that in September when the students are back. On September the 29th through October 1, we have Bishop Dennis Drainville, the Anglican Bishop of Quebec, coming, and he's going to bring a student from the class organization, and we're going to have a meeting at the universities at King's. We're going to meet in ecumenical or cross-faith meetings on Sunday. We're going to have our own people's tribunal on eviction, where we talk about the Occupy eviction, the Africville eviction, and now the eviction of mentally challenged people from rental accommodation through advocates for those folks. So there we'll have testimony, and we'll probably produce a film from that. But what we're calling that weekend Resurgence. And we don't mean resurgence of Occupy, but resurgence of the entire progressive movement in Halifax, September 29th. And we hope that there is some way we can plan with you. Ian Matheson is trying to be in contact with you. I hope you can get a positive response. Okay, that's
so
the
is there
commercial.
a way you have of contacting people that are not on internet, not on, you know, the media waves that you have, or whatever you call it? Because people, for instance, mental health issues, you know, eviction because of mentally challenged and stuff. Lots of these people don't have internet, they have a phone, they have a mail. That's what they have. They can't afford $100 a month for, you know, what most of you people have called the internet or the media communication thing or whatever you call it. Yeah, they don't have it.
In my case, you're preaching to the converted. I think the electronics is overblown.
So how do you do it? Somebody, as you telling
Yes.
somebody about the September 29th or October 1st weekend is extremely important to all the players. How do you contact them?
So what ideas do we have? We do posters.
Okay.
There ought to be somebody door knocking. What do other people think?
Or sending
that
them in
wouldn't
the
be
mail.
bad at all.
You can sometimes get a deal with pamphlets in the
Direct
mail.
mail.
Yeah.
Yes.
As I understand it, I have some connection with the Occupy movement. Their financial resources are really quite limited. There was some cash that they received, a sizable donation from the labor movement last year, and I think that's been their primary source of funding for Occupy Nova Scotia. I think most of that is gone. I think doing things with a broad-based mail is simply beyond Occupy's financial needs at this point. Is that correct?
So they contact something like Metro Nonprofit Housing, Salvation Army, some of those groups that can get to the people that they directly deal with.
I like it.
There certainly are some limitations around that. Occupy, I feel, has always had this very large expectation made of us that the people involved, due to the relatively small involvement, have been hard to make happen. With more involvement, I would love to take on these kinds of things. There was initially a PO box set up in our name, and during the winter months when we saw a stark drop in involvement, it became impossible to maintain these things. And we would love more involvement. We can easily do all these things. We certainly have all these things in our mind with a little more involvement. And if we, a big part of it would just be knowing that there is a future, knowing that there is a public interest in Occupy. It's been hard to, through the winter months, to really remember that fact. But I think we do see that here today. So I'm very optimistic about our ability in the near future to take on those things. Our September resurgence with the students coming back, I think, will allow us to do that. And I love that suggestion.
So how do you get people there from September 29th to October 1st? If you're going to get the real people.
I was just going to make a suggestion, because what we've done in the past in this community, and for some reason it's gotten lost, and I don't know what the reason is, but we used to do it all the time with Community Action on Homelessness. If you're planning an event, somebody put together a damn poster, just a black and white poster, and get that out on every telephone pole on the peninsula a few days at least before the event, so that people can know about it. That's maybe the best way to contact the most number of people, especially people that don't have anything else, and especially people that are homeless and people that don't have any place that you can actually deliver a message to them. It is effective. It has been effective in the past. It's like I agree with some of the comments. We have become far too reliant on the social media on the social media, we're basically reaching out to ourselves. We're singing to the choir, guys, because everybody that I follow on the social media has the same values as me. All my Facebook friends have the same values as me. We're not like reaching beyond the outside the box at all. Most of us, I don't think, that are on there. So
let me just add a nice thought to that, and that is, what I've been trying to do is take Occupy around to the churches, and I'm telling you that these middle class people know that Occupy and progressive movement needs to exist. They know that, and they want it, and they want us to be out there, and they love the young people. So the potential is immense.
I saw a hand over there in the chair.
Follow that kind of point you said, which is a very simple suggestion, which is when you go to tell the interfaith networks about it, one of the devices that they have beyond bulletins and announcements, which you actually should ask them to make and ask them to notify people so that pieces of paper they actually hand out for part of your mail circular. You could ask them to actually put a little circular that they give to their neighbors when they're coming from church about it. But you also, they have billboards, all of the churches, where they announce who their minister is and what the message is going to be. But if they really think it's a message worth promoting, each one of those billboards sit on corners where people drive by all the time, on corners where if they said, everybody in Halifax invited to, important event for our whole community, on all of their billboards across faith communities, you've got a fairly significant network of public signs that we don't utilize, right? That might actually have somebody, for the church's sake, notice their signs as providing some useful information to the world at some point, rather than here's our phone number.
I just want to thank Ian for his contribution to putting this together. He did go out and he made posters, Wayne, and put them up, and little flyers and everything. So it obviously works, especially for the wonderful group we have here today.
Yes, postering we have been.
Pardon me?
No, posters, people tear them down as soon as you put them up. I seen them everywhere yesterday. I couldn't even find the numbers of that.
Yeah.
Couldn't even see a poster there yesterday. I seen like 25, 30 handballs.
Okay, and that is actually a sign of success on posters. When I worked in the arts community, we knew how successful our show was going to be. By 3 days before the event, there was no posters to be found. We knew we were going to have to get more wine, cheese, popcorn, whatever.
All right.
But anyway, Ian Matheson and I have, Ian, a lot of his own personal resources. We have, in the middle of the night, still been photocopying, going, places that, you gotta have a look at, because there are actually some bylaws about postering. But anyways, we've done it. And so it's a matter of having someone actually, sometimes physically sponsor the poster, like an agency, a person, whatever. I mean, Ian's done a lot of his own personal resources, gone to Staples or Kinko that's open all night, and we've made more posters and gotten them out. So it's a matter of just the people power and the physical pieces of paper.
One interesting development is the Center for Policy Alternatives.
A couple over there. There's a couple over there.
We'll get right back to David. I see some hands over there.
Sure.
Anyone else?
I just have a question for Megan, more directly related to the budget. We really only have scratched the surface of all the issues here, and whether or not there is anything we can really do about it. I think if anyone wants to arm themselves with knowledge, do you know of the best resources, like analysis of the budget? Because I found 1,000 things online written by God knows who. So do you know a really good analysis, or
That's
where we get
a
information?
great question. I've not seen an overall resource. What I've seen are great reputable organizations tackling a piece. So on the environment front, EcoJustice has really, really reliable overviews of each aspect of the environmental changes. I can absolutely say with confidence that they're reliable and they're correct. and really well done. So on other issues, what I would recommend is talk to people. If you don't know an organization that would have that kind of expertise, talk to people in your community about like who out there should we trust on the EI and